All right, so I'm about to show you guys an interview, a podcast interview I did with one of my coaching clients who, over our last prospecting challenge, set 29 listing appointments in 2 days. That is not a typo. 29 listing appointments in 2 days. I'm going to share that conversation with you guys in just a second. We're going to actually break down one of his live cold calls where he set one of those listing appointments so that you can hear exactly what it is that he's learned to say, what he's learned to do, to the point now, I mean, he's been in the business for about a year and a half, where he's taking a listing every single week. So before we jump into that, I just want you guys to have access to a brand new live workshop I just released. It's 100% free. There's a link to that right in the description underneath this video. You can grab it. It's our 6-figure listing agent blueprint workshop. It's available right now. It's going to show you exactly what to do step by step so that you can actually apply what it is that we talk about in these videos on the YouTube channel, and for yourself implement what it is that you're going to learn in this workshop and build a 6-figure listing agent business. We just got done with our prospecting challenge where you won that challenge because you set 29 listing appointments in just 2 days. And we're going to talk to the audience about how in the world were you able to do that? Because the reality, as you know, most agents won't set 29 listing appointments in a year, and you were able to do that in 2 days. So first off, welcome to the show. I'm looking forward to breaking this down with you.
Thanks for having me, Brandon.
Yeah, for sure. So let's just give some context, right? You haven't been, it's not like these appointments came from this huge sphere of influence and you had all these past clients. You've been doing this for 25 years. I mean, you're fairly newer to the business, and all of those appointments were set with absolute strangers. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, matter of fact, none of them, hardly, maybe like 25% of them came from people that I've actually talked to in the past. So.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly what we're going to get into, right? So how long have you actually been selling real estate?
So I got my license in May of 2022. I sold 2 houses that first year. So last year, 2023 is my first full year in real estate.
It's amazing. It's amazing to see how far you've come. And so how long have you and I actually been working together now?
I joined the program in February of this year.
In February. Okay. So before that, just for context purposes, what were you doing from a lead generation perspective to go out there and actually get clients?
So I don't know if you're going to like this answer. I was actually ripping your content off YouTube, taking anything free I could get,
Sure.
and then trying to implement it with a bunch of missing pieces. And so I was actually doing outbound cold calling and prospecting, a little bit of door to door, but not too much of that. So outbound cold calling with little skill, and then a little bit of door knocking with little skill as well.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to, I love that answer. I wish more people would do that. I wish more people would take the free content, implement it, get results, right? And so, no, I don't hate that answer at all, quite frankly. So since February, kind of walk us through, what does production look like these days? How many listings are you starting to take? I mean, again, we're going to get into the details of you setting so many appointments in the last 2 days, but give us a high level understanding of what your production looks like as of recently.
Yeah. So, right now I'm sitting on 9 listings active. I've got 3 of those pending. I've got 5 deals under contract right now. And so now my goal is to get all these other listings sold, but I'm also generating new listings as we speak. So my goal right now is to set at least 1 listing appointment a day. And that usually leads me to about 1 listing a week right now.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. Yeah. And that's phenomenal. I mean, for a guy that's been doing this just for, a year and a half, 2 years, I mean, it's incredible. And so let's dig into that for a second. Where so many agents, and all the stats, whatever it is, 85, 90% of agents fail out of the business within their first couple of years. What is it about the way in which you're approaching the business that allows you to succeed at the level that you're succeeding right now?
Well, I would say the biggest thing is my direct approach to going and finding business every day. So instead of just having, so instead of having like, no hit towards any car salesman out there. I don't know how they do business, but what I take from them is they're just waiting for people to pull in the lot. And like you said, I've not been doing business for 25 years. I don't have this great reputation in my city. So the only way logically for me to go generate business is to do exactly that, go and generate business. And so I'm not going to sit here and just twiddle my thumbs waiting for something to come to me when I know that there's sellers out there raising their hand saying, hey, I need help selling. And I'm going to be the guy that goes and does that.
Yeah, which is great. And we're going to actually break down one of your live cold calls, which I think the audience will get a lot from that. But before we do that, let's kind of break down the business. So what you just said, you've made a business decision to be proactive in your lead generation, to go out there and actually initiate conversations with the people that you want to do business with, which is homeowners, so you can build a listing-based business. What do you think keeps most agents from that activity? In other words, to your point, most agents are just waiting around for business. They don't want to pick up the phone. They don't want to go knock on the door. They're afraid, Talon. You know they are afraid. What is it that keeps them out of doing these types of activities that is bringing you so much success? And they know it. They'll watch this podcast and they'll say, man, I'm going to get inspired. I just watched this interview with this Talon guy. The dude's doing amazing things. And they still can't do the action. Why?
Well, my next question to them would be, here's the deal, Brandon. Everyone's always going to have a reason not to do the hard work, right?
Yeah.
So my mindset is, I know if I do the hard work now, I can do the easy stuff later.
Mm.
And so, I mean, I can come up with a whole list of reasons why I shouldn't prospect this morning, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, I know that that's not going to benefit my future. So I guess the thing that separates me and most of your coaching clients versus the people out there that are just waiting for business to come knocking on their door is the grit, the hustle, and the motivation. And the reason why we want to win, that's why we're doing it. That's why we're actively out here getting told no 20 times, but then we get a yes, that makes it all worth it.
Yeah, great point. I agree with you. So when we break down your business, what lead sources are you focused on mainly right now?
So I wish sphere of influence,
Right.
but most of the time, I'd say about 45% comes from expireds, 45% comes from for sale by owners, and then about whatever the rest of that at 10% comes from circle prospects.
Yeah, yeah. And your sphere of influence will come later in your career, as you know, right? As you continue to build your business and you start to continue to communicate with the people that you know, that business will come. It's funny because most agents rely heavily just on their friends and family, and that's probably one of the reasons why they struggle so badly. So you're going out there right now and generating business from people that don't know you and you don't know them. That requires a skill set. So when you talk about prospecting, how much time every day are you spending to your craft initiating conversations with homeowners?
Yeah, let me say this. I'm definitely not perfect, right? I wish I could nail down 3-4 hours of prospecting every day. Unfortunately, that's just not the case for me. But I do have a certain amount of context that I try to hit every day. But time, you asked me about time. I genuinely am pretty good at about spending about an hour to 2 hours every day on the phones. And I try to get that done early in the morning. That way I don't let anything come in between me and what makes me the money.
Well, what's incredible is an hour or two per day is getting you one new listing per week. It's incredible. It's not like you're having to, that's why this pays so well, right? I mean, you can work for an hour or two per day and do really, really well in this business. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you asked me something just a second ago about skills. And so thankfully, because you've been able to help me with my skills, now my leads to contact ratio is way higher than what it used to be. So what I used to be able to spend, or whenever I used to spend hours trying to get a lead on the phone, well, now it only takes me a little bit of time because of my skill set. I can convert them into leads in a sooner or in a quicker amount of time.
Great point. So can you put some context for the audience? So they don't know, they don't speak our language, right? So when we look at lead to or contact to lead ratio, explain to the audience what that is, what's happening there, what it used to be, and what it is now.
Yeah. So for me, what it is right now, first of all, what it used to be, I didn't even know what the difference was. Right.
We weren't tracking, right?
Yeah. Now it might seem like a matter of semantics, but it really means something if you track your business like you should. So if I call 10 people, well, the general average, and correct me if I'm wrong, is about 50%, or is it 30, something like that?
So the average is, right, so from contact, so from conversation to a lead being generated, the average is about 10%, 1 out of every 10 conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, so right now mine's anywhere between 30 to 50%. Like if I talk to 10 people, I can get 3 to 5 leads out of those 10 people. And now, Brandon, let me my question to myself was, would I rather spend 4 hours talking to 50 people and get 3 to 4 leads? Or would I rather talk to 10 people in an hour and a half and get 3 to 4 leads? No
100%.
brainer.
No brainer, right? So a much more efficient way to do business, because there's a lot of people out there that listen to the show or follow the content on YouTube that they understand, Talon, that they have to pick up the phone and they got to prospect every day, but they're just not getting results, right? And so that's what today's episode is going to be all about. We're going to break down some skills. So 1 to 2 hours a day, and how many conversations or contacts does that allow you to have every day?
So originally in my business plan, I needed about 22, 25 contacts. Again, not been perfect, but usually on an average on a day, I can talk to anywhere between 13 to 18 people and really easily accomplish the amount of leads I need in that day, which is anywhere between 3 to 4 or 5 leads.
Yeah. So that's another efficiency, right? So when you and I met, you originally had to do 20, 25 contacts a day to hit the goal that we set on the business plan. But because of your skill set, now you're having to make less contacts, work less hard to get better results. Amazing. So,
Yeah.
so break down what the rest of your day looks like. So you can kind of walk people through an average daily schedule.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I started off in the mornings with wake up pretty early. I try to, anyways. And then I always devote a specific time to like prayer and study in the morning. And then ideally going to the gym. But after that, if I don't go, I usually start prospecting right at 8 to probably about 10:30. I'm trying to generate new business, right? And then from about 10:30 to 11:30, I'm talking to people that I've already met with or talked to before, following up, etc. From there, take lunch. 1 to 3, like your program says, like I try to dedicate that time to my clients, uh, business stuff, admin stuff, etc. And then that 3 to 7, I'm going on listing appointments. Sometimes there's one, and then if that's the case, I'm prospecting more. But sometimes I've done 3 in a day, and man,
Sure.
those are crazy days, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. And what percentage of the time do you comply with that schedule? Like, is it 80% of the time you can follow the schedule? Is it 50% of the time? What would you say your compliance with that is?
I would say, if I can be honest, which is what you've told me to be, I'd probably say about 70% of that
It's
is
great.
pretty dead on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what we see is for most agents, again, we're all about the truth, right? So the honest truth is that most agents don't have a schedule, right? They're just reacting to the day of whatever happens. And so their production is limited because they don't follow a system or a schedule. All right.
Which
So
was me.
sure, it's most people, and thank you for being honest. And so when we look at that, let's break down the skills for a second. Let's talk to Talon some of the skills that you've learned from a sales perspective selling over the telephone. Then we'll break down lead follow up, and then we'll get into the listing presentation. And then what we'll do is actually break down a live call of yours. Cool?
Okay, cool.
All right. So if you can just think for a second, all right. I know that you and I have done a lot of work together. You've learned a lot of different things, but selling over the phone specifically, you talked about how much more efficient you've become. You've talked about your conversion ratios going a lot higher than they used to be. What can you attribute that to as far as the phone sales skills that you've learned that you feel like has made the biggest impact?
Yeah. So great question. What I would say is, first of all, the ability to take a no and go on to the next phone call, right?
Mm,
And I think that's just, and I'm not trying to talk about myself necessarily, but just anyone that's learning phone skills or phone sales in general, you've got to develop a confidence of what you're selling really works. Therefore, you're willing to take the no's because you know you're going to find a yes, right?
yeah.
More specifically, other than that, I love the reverse selling method, meaning like you're willing to take a no, and not just a no, like don't call me, but like asking no oriented questions, for example, rather than the classic salesman wants to get people to say yes all the time, right?
Sure.
And at first I thought, I was like, man, this stuff, what in the world? But when you take it and go and apply it, these people have never heard anything like this, right? And
Yeah.
so it really just kind of gets you in the door. And if I can use an analogy you've used for probably years, um, if I had to generalize what I'm trying to say, the skills that we've learned is, okay, when you said this before, when a person walks in a store and they say, hey, can I help you find anything? Or what do you need help looking for something? No, no, I'm just looking. And then 5 minutes later, they're at the register buying something. Well, the skills that we've been able to learn through this program is allowed us to get past that initial wall that everybody puts up, myself included, and get past to where the real motivation is and where that seller's really at in their timeline or their life, and seeing how we might be able to serve them the best.
I love it. And we're going to give people a great example in a real call in just a second. So, shifting out of the first call, talk to us about the importance of lead follow-up and the role that's played in your ability to set more listing appointments.
Yeah. So again, this is another subject. I'm going to be honest, and maybe I can relate to somebody out there that I wish I was perfect at this. And me and you are actually working on this right now. So it is something I'm still trying to be more consistent with. Now, I will say though, the reason why I'm trying to work this out, much like I was trying to work out my skills in the beginning, is because I know the importance of it, right? I know how effective it is to talk to somebody week in and week out in a proper manner. That way you become the obvious choice when they need to list their home again.
Sure.
Or for the first time.
Yeah. So what's the issue that you have with lead follow-up? Is it just being organized? Is it, what is the issue that you've had in the past that you're working on getting better?
Okay, I'm just going to put it out there. And this is my honest synopsis. So I like to make myself hopeful of a lot of opportunities. And so whenever I'm getting all these leads, because I'm really good at it, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way.
No, you are. You are really good at it.
Well, I'm generating all these leads, right? And then some of them aren't ready to list today, and I'm okay with that. I understand. But
Yep.
I say, okay, I'm going to check back up with you next week. Well, I don't want to hear no sometimes. So I'm almost procrastinating the hearing the no part rather than just picking up the phone call and offering my service day in and day out and being confident like I've been preaching this entire time. And so, yeah, that's probably my biggest thing is like I got a lot of hope in my pipeline, but I don't want to face reality.
Yeah.
So
Makes total sense. I mean, that's most people's issue when it comes to lead follow-up is the pipeline is filled with hopium, right?
yeah.
It's a lot. So you're working through that though, because I think that when I look at a lot of the appointments you set over the prospecting challenge, a lot of them actually were from lead follow-up. A lot of them were.
Yeah.
So we're gonna listen to those in just a second. All right, shift gears to the listing appointment. So now you've done a great job on the initial call. You've generated a great lead. You've done a great job in lead follow-up. Maybe you've had 3, 4, 5 conversations. You set the appointment. You go on the appointment. What are some best practices that you have learned that might help the audience take and win more listings that you've learned recently?
So, I go on a lot of appointments and I'm being really realistic with these sellers. So I go on a lot of listing appointments and I don't take like my listing appointment ratio versus listings taken is way different than some others. And so I'm working on figuring that out. But tips that have helped me is again, honesty, right? And pre-qualifying them over the phone before you meet is a big deal that I've been implementing literally just this week. And it's helping me go on these listing appointments with more confidence I'm going to get the listing rather than just go meet with a seller.
Sure.
Right. Because I could care less about just going and having a meeting with somebody if we're not actually going to do business, and if they know that up front. And so my job is to draw that motivation over the phone with skills to where whenever I do set an appointment, I can bank my bottom dollar or bet my bottom dollar that I'm going to get a listing. So a couple of practices. I like to put them on my Google Calendar. Maybe is this what you're referring to? Like stuff like this?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like to put them on my Google Calendar. Whenever I get their email to send them my resume and marketing plan of action, I say, now, look, I'm going to put you on my Google Calendar. Will you do me a favor and go ahead and accept that prior to our meeting? That way I know you got it.
Love it.
And that's been a big game changer. Another thing is I like to write these little handwritten thank you cards. I don't know if you can see it.
Yep.
Every time I set an appointment, Brandon, I got this from your program. I send them a handwritten thank you card with a magnetic business card in there. And that just separates me from all my other competition. Right. Yeah. Another thing, I obviously call and text before our meeting. But my biggest tip, my biggest thing that I love asking at the end of a phone call is this. We call it pre-qualifying or qualifying. And I'll just tell them straight up, like, look, can I be honest with you? And they say, sure. And I'm like, look, I do a lot of these phone calls. And sometimes people just kind of agree to meet with me to be nice and get me off the phone. You can be honest. That's not happening here, is it?
Love it.
And Brandon, if I had $1 for every time they bust out laughing, saying, "No, man, I'm glad you asked me that question. No, I really want to meet with you." When was the last time any new agent or any agent as all has ever heard that from somebody out of nowhere?
That's right. Because this goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show, which the audience will hear this in a real call in a second. This is you. First off, before I hit record, I said to you something. I don't know if you caught it or not. I said skills manifest actually through a mindset. And this mindset that you're talking about right now is being comfortable with hearing the word no, so much so that you actually invite the prospect not to tell you no, but to tell you the truth. Because that's what we're after. And to your point, most agents can't handle the truth, so they don't ask. So they end up having to spin their wheels, go on a bunch of unqualified appointments, which sometimes that's okay as you're learning, but it's because of a mindset of they don't have the courage to hear the truth. How have you built that muscle that's allowed you to ask questions like that? That I bet you some people in the audience that listen to the show can be like, oh my gosh, I can never ask that question, Talon. I can never ask that. How have you built that muscle?
So the muscle, and just like any other muscle, comes through constant training, right?
That's right.
Constant work. And so one thing is this is the first thing that comes to mind is I went on so many listing appointments. I think from the first of the year, I went on 79 listing appointments. Or I'm
Wow.
sorry. I went on 33. I've set 79, right?
Yeah.
And so the reason why I bring that up is this is my point to all of this is I would rather them tell me no than me take an hour of my time preparing for the meeting, an hour of my time driving to the property, another hour talking to them, and then how many ever hours kept following up with them after because I didn't get the business in the first place. I would rather hear the no up front than spend the 4 or 5 hours, if not even more, working with somebody that's not going to generate me business. Because what I'm doing there, Brandon, is I'm missing out on all the people that have to sell rather than the people that are just thinking about wanting or that you're just thinking about, right?
Yeah.
So, and you always tell us like, we need to find the people that have to sell in order to make it. And so that's my job. So I'm trying to disqualify all the people I can so I can spend my time, that very limited amount of time, finding the people that have to sell.
Yeah, no doubt. There's, and I agree with you 100%. There's one small caveat that I want to get your thoughts on. Okay. How about the agent who doesn't have your skills or confidence yet, that is building they're still in the process of building his or her business, who say to that, well, I'm actually willing to take that risk. I'm actually willing to go on more appointments, kind of how you were saying a minute ago, to take more shots because I don't have the skills to disqualify over the phone yet. How would you coach that newer agent? Do you feel like there's a strategy in the beginning to actually purposefully go on some more appointments versus qualifying them? Do you find any value in that yourself? And would you coach a new agent to do the same thing?
Absolutely. I mean, here's the deal. I've not been qualifying them, but since February, right?
Right.
So for the past year and a half, I've been on countless amount of these listing appointments like you're talking about that were not qualified. Yeah. That somehow I choked out the proper words to get them to say yes, right? Yeah. And so I've been in those shoes, but now I'm to the point where I need to start qualifying them because I can get anyone to say yes to me. But to that agent, I would say continue to go. And until your calendar is just so full where you can't fit any more qualified listing appointments in there, which is where I feel like I'm at right now, that's whenever I would start qualifying them. And here's the thing, Brandon, I would never, I had a mentor tell me this early on, like regardless if you get a listing or not, at least when you go and meet with somebody knows who you are. Like one more person knows who you are, whether that generates you business or not. Like there's always an optimistic way to look at something. And so for that newer agent, like somebody's knowing your name, they're seeing the services that you provide, and you never really know what's going to come from that. And I have had success with that from the past.
Yeah, no doubt, right? And we always talk about this too. The learning's actually in the doing, right? So there's a lot of value in that. And then the other thing is there's just different phases of an agent's business. The phase first is like, let's get these appointments on the calendar. Right now, you don't have anything, not you, just agents in general. So it's like, if you can get in front of somebody, set the appointment. Then to your point, it's exactly when you need to shift strategies, is when you have so many appointments you can't fit anymore. We start to replace those appointments with higher quality versus the quantity. Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. All right, so let's have some fun. All right, I'm going to share the audio of this call, and I'm going to kind of go through bits and pieces of it. I'm going to pause it at some points. And what I'd like for you to do, Talon, is to speak to the audience around what you're doing on this call. So almost like you can coach the audience through your own call, and so they can understand, they can make sense of some of the things we talked about in the podcast so far in a real world situation. Is that cool?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right. So let me just get the audio of this teed up, and we're going to rock and roll. Ready?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Yeah. Hey, man, this is Talon again with Live Oak Real Estate. I didn't catch you at a bad time, did I?
One more time.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, who is it?
This is Talon again with Live Oak Real Estate. We spoke about a month ago about your property there on North Elm Street in Imboden. I just was hoping to ask a quick question about that, if that's okay. I know I'm the last person you'll be talking to today.
All right. So talk to us about that. What did you just do right there when you said, hey, you almost asked to get some permission, and then you spoke in a way that was almost self-deprecating. Can you speak to that skill specifically so the audience can kind of connect the dots?
Yeah, so this is a follow-up call, right? So I have talked, this isn't usually how I start every phone call. Follow-up call, yes, this is about what it looks like. So what I've just done is what you teach a pattern interrupt, right? This is saying, look, I know you don't want to be talking to me right now, but can I ask a question really quickly? And what that does is it gains permission to ask the questions that you need to ask.
Yeah, it does it, and you find that it helps to lower their defensive guard a bit because you're giving them the option to say no. You're giving them the autonomy to make up their own decision, and because you've given up what could be perceived as the control, and you've given that to the prospect more times than not, the adherence to that goes up. Is that what you have found?
Absolutely, they take it and run with it. Everybody wants to be in control.
That's right. All right, let's keep going.
No, go ahead. I got just a little bit.
Okay, well, you told me that last time we spoke to give you a call in about a month. I just didn't know if you guys ended up accepting an offer yet on that property or if it was still available.
I haven't accepted an offer yet.
Okay, what time on
I
Saturday?
do have someone very interested.
Great.
But
Okay, well,
nothing been accepted.
Well,
So
I told you last time, I respect the fact what you guys are trying to do. And I kind of went over just briefly, what we've been able to do for other for sale by owners in the area. I just didn't know, Dustin, and I know you don't necessarily have to sell it right now, but can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
You're not in any kind of hurry to sell it, are you?
All right, so let's pause. Let's talk about a couple things that you're doing. So when you use language like "I just didn't know," talk to us about that and kind of what's happening there.
I just, whenever I say that, I'm trying to create curiosity. Like whenever I'm saying this, I'm trying to make him feel like I don't have a script right here in front of me. And so I'm just speaking to how I usually would speak. Yeah.
And let me help you. What's happening is it's what we would call anti-rejection language. And so what's happening for the audience is when you say things like "I just didn't know" versus saying things more matter of fact, like, they then can resist that or give you a objection. When you say, "Hey, I just didn't know," there's nothing to resist because you're not sure of it yourself. I just didn't know if it would make sense for us to have this conversation. I just didn't know if you had accepted an offer. I just didn't know if the house was still available. I just didn't know if interviewing an agent right now would make any sense or not, right? So by using that type of language, there is nothing to resist, right?
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Not really, but I mean, I don't have to sell it, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
that's where I'm at. Like for it to sell.
Got it. Well, I'm looking at my calendar, and I'm going to be honest, man. I've got 12 of these appointments scheduled for the next week. So, I guess, could I ask a favor?
So talk to us about that. When you ask questions like, hey, can I make a recommendation? Can I shoot you straight? Can I ask for a favor? What is it that you're doing there? Or what have you learned that allows you to do?
Yeah, so what I'm doing is I'm trying to get them to agree in a micro way. That way, whenever I do try to set an appointment, they have already built up some they're used to kind of agreeing with me. They're used to kind of saying yes to me in a sense, even though it might be with a no oriented question. So like what I just did was I just did a micro agreement, and I also did like what I feel like I'm trying to do right now. A lot of these have happened in the past couple
Sure.
weeks, but I think I was just trying to do like, I don't know if this is a proper terminology, but like I was assuming the fact that he wanted to meet with me.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
so like, and so I don't remember what I just said right there, but I think that's where I was going with that. I'm like, look, you're not in a hurry. Like, and what I'm about to do is I'm about to try to get him on a calendar, right? I'm assuming that whatever he just told me was all yeses. Now, like in my head, if I can just get him to agree to meet with me, I got the game. Like that's all I need to get in his presence.
Yeah, and we talked about that. Your confidence when you make calls is to set an appointment. You know, you're so confident around that. Let's see how you position that, okay?
Yeah. And this requires nothing of you up front, but I'm looking at my calendar and I would love to swing by the property and go over that plan that I talked to you about last time about how we could help you get top dollar out of the property. Because I know you're not going to hire an agent, and I'm not saying you should, unless you felt 100% confident that, of course, they could get you the money you need in your pocket, bottom line, right?
That to me is the number one appointment setting skill with what you just did. It's the
because framework.
Yes, it's the number one skill. So let me back this up just so you can hear it again and the audience can hear it again. It's what's happening. Here's what I want you to listen to. I want the audience to listen to. First off, we have to have the courage to ask for what it is that we want. In this case, it's an appointment. We have to ask for the appointment. How we ask for the appointment is really important. So the way you're using the if-then framework for sure, but then you ask a question and gain agreement with something that you know that they're going to agree with 100% of the time. So I want everybody to listen to all of this happening at once.
Calendar, and I would love to swing by the property and go over that plan that I talked to you about last time about how we could help you get top dollar out of the property. Because I know you're not going to hire an agent, and I'm not saying you should, unless you felt 100% confident that, of course, they could get you the money you need in your pocket, bottom line, right? And so,
boom. I mean, that's huge, right? So you ask for the appointment, but we don't. Where most agents go wrong, Taylor, and you know this, they ask for the appointment and then they stop. And when they ask for the appointment and they stop, they're met with resistance. So before you end, hey, listen, I'd love to stop by, take a peek at the house. When I'm there, I'll kind of show you yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera. We can't stop there. It's then using the because framework. Because let's face it, right? I mean, you're not going to do anything unless you felt that it made 100% financial sense for you, right? Of course they say right. And because they've said right, they've also agreed to the thing you said first. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I'm like words are wanting to come out of my mouth right now just because this part gets me excited. Like when
Absolutely.
you get down to this part in the like your phone call, man, it gets exciting, right?
That's right.
But I said that to say a practical tip. Speaking, like, does it always work like this? And would I say this is one of my best phone calls? Absolutely not. Like I'm kind of cringing even listening to myself. But one of the things that I love to do, and I don't know, maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I maybe need to stop doing this, but whenever I say, if I could swing by the property one day this week, show you blah, 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 I would love to be able to do that. I mean, would you be completely against the idea of taking a look at something like that? And even if I leave that as an open-ended question, like as soon as they start talking, Brandon, I interrupt them and I say, well, because let's face it. And I hit them with the because framework. So like I just did, I piggybacked off myself, but even if you were to ask them the open-ended question, and I was telling our team during the prospecting challenge, like, look, completely interrupt them and then hit them with the because framework, because then they're obviously going to agree to it. And then from that point on, I'm just okay, well, I'm looking at my calendar right now and I get it. Boom, right then.
You are 100% actually spot on. I'm glad that you said that because we don't talk about that as much as we probably should in coaching calls. That is exactly what we need to do. Because what I've taught in the appointment setting training is whatever they say, you interrupt them and say because. And we know based on the science, right? And so a lot of Dr. Cialdini's work, the because framework is so critical to getting them over the hump, right? And that's the part of the call I wanted to show everybody. That's really a skill set that I believe you've mastered. that's allowed you to set so many appointments. And I think that's got to be the number one skill that you've learned. Is that right?
Yeah, and I use maybe not the because framework, but more so that principle of like, I just got to keep the snowball rolling and it's going to do the work for me. So from the very beginning, no matter what I'm hearing on the phone, I know, and maybe this is a part where I really need to start digging deeper to pre-qualify a little bit more, but I know that what they're telling me over the phone is probably not the most accurate truth. And so I know all I got to do is get in front of them to really get that truth. And so doing this type of principle of like, taking whatever they say, kind of dismissing it almost, and interrupting them with stuff that they will agree with. Because let's face it, I know I'm the best agent for them in this scenario, right? And I know they're not going to disagree with that once they meet me.
100%. And that's another good principle, right? Nothing is as it seems, because they're resisting, right? Everybody wants to resist. So we call it an ignore pivot. It's like, I heard you, right? And so we ask questions to really uncover the truth, and only motivated people will agree to doing certain things. So let's see how he responds to this appointment, because you might have to ask for it a couple different times. And I'd love to hear how you respond to some of these objections.
I mean, I'm looking at my calendar. I mean, would the 18th of May be too far out or too soon to just pencil in on a calendar? I can swing by the property and take a look at it. And of course, you and the wife can decide what you want to do from there.
Yeah. 18th of May.
I'm just trying to pencil something in because I get a lot of.
I love how you do this, because you know if you leave it too long, he's going to object, right? That's what's happening right now. So you jump in yet again, and you're trying to lower the perceived risk to agree to meet with you. Yes?
Yes, sir.
That's right. So we're removing the threat that a prospect may feel. And so any pressure that they feel, you're in the process of removing it right now, just so the audience can hear it.
These appointments. And so we can obviously move that around. There's a lot that can happen in between now and then. I mean, you could sell it, but I didn't know if I could just pencil you in there. And then if we need to move it, we can.
Right. Yeah, let's shoot for a little later than the 18th, though.
So I'm looking.
I've got some stuff going.
Okay, I'm looking like you want to shoot for the next week, like the 22nd or the 24th?
Yeah, we can shoot for sometime in there.
Okay.
I can probably run up, meet you, and
yeah.
we
All
can
right.
go over some stuff. But I will tell you, I've bought, sold houses before.
Yeah, that's what you told me.
More than once. So.
Yeah, you told me that. And again, look, this plan's not for everybody, right? I would just like to maybe have an opportunity to swing by because I do a lot of work in the area. So it would give me an opportunity to meet you, see the house, and go over this plan, this strategy that we're using for other people. And of course, that way you got it on the table for you down the road, you know?
Sure.
So talk to us just really quick about the part where you said, this plan isn't for everybody. Why did you do that?
So this is another line that I stole from YouTube, right? Your YouTube videos. And I've been using that for a while and I love it. Even there's team members at our office that love whenever I say that. And one, it's just being honest, right? Like,
that's right.
I'm not the agent for everybody. And what that does is it's almost like, well, I don't know. You actually, it starts to almost make them want to sell themselves to me. Like, if I'm not the agent for everybody, well, why wouldn't you be the agent for me? Like, it almost makes them want to figure out for themselves.
Yeah. Well, the other thing it does too, both of those are true. The third thing, and the most important thing, Talon, that it actually does as well, when we speak in ways that could be perceived to go against our interest, it makes us come across more trustworthy, because the salesperson who we call this like confirmation bias, right? Where we're saying, or a perceived bias rather, where everything the salesperson says is trying to get the prospect to do business with them. And then when you communicate the opposite of that, to say, listen, I'm not for everyone. Only somebody that can communicate like that actually allows the person to be perceived that they can be trustworthy and make it safe for them to meet, because it's not going to be this high pressure sales pitch. That's the perception you're giving off. All right, the call's almost done. Let's 1 more minute. Let's see how you close this thing up.
Okay, I'm going to pencil in the 24th. Is mornings or afternoons better for you?
It really, I'll have to wait till closer. We'll shoot for morning.
Okay. Let's just say at about 11.
Yeah.
And I'll pencil that in. I will text you the week before to confirm our meeting. And just to make sure I'm clear, you gave me an email. It's
Cool. So nice job. I mean, again, it's just the confidence. And I think a lot of what people will hear is that confidence that you're going to set this appointment. And you're doing it in a way that some people might hear that and confuse, because they're having this fine line of not wanting to come across as like this pushy salesperson because it makes them feel out of integrity, right? We do it in a way in the reverse selling methodology to increase close ratios without the person feeling the pressure. And that's the skill that you've really developed over the last couple of months. Is that right?
Yes. And and I will be the first to say, Brandon, I'm not a pushy guy.
Yeah.
I'm really not. I've never been that type. And I did have that ideal or thought of this type of stuff before I was in the coaching program. I was like, man,
Sure.
this stuff seems pretty pushy, you know? But here's the deal. I'm doing it all with permission. They
That's right.
allowed me to get on the phone. They allowed me to ask another question. They're allowing me to come over, right? And I think you would agree with me. No one's, well, very rare. If they really do feel uncomfortable, and if they really do feel uncomfortable to meet, they're not going to meet with you.
That's right.
Right. That's just my thoughts. If they're really uncomfortable with me, they're not going to meet with me.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing anything bad to anyone by doing what we're doing.
Yeah, and you nailed it. I mean, the whole foundation of the reverse selling method is to get the prospect's permission, right? And that's what's happening here. To your point, they've given us permission to have the conversation in the first place. They've given us permission to ask for the appointment. They've given us the permission to show them what we could do to get the property sold. It's all them asking us to do it. So, as you kind of look back, right, if you can kind of get licensed all over again, what are maybe one or two pieces of advice that you would give yourself that other newer agents watching or listening to the podcast can learn from?
Yeah, so I'm in the comments of your YouTube section all the time with people saying, man, I wish I could afford it, or man, I wish I could start. I'm telling them to start because that is my biggest, not trying to sell Brandon's program,
Sure.
but that is my biggest regret is like, man, I wish I would have been able to have these skills from a couple of years ago or a year and a half ago, even 8 months ago would have been a game changer. I just wonder where I would be today. So that would be the first piece of advice. And so my second piece of advice would be the learning is in the doing. Get to work today. Practice what you're learning.
Yeah, I love it, man. That was a lot of fun. This episode was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you doing this. I'm excited for where you're taking this thing. Maybe we can do this again in the future, but I want to thank you so much for the time that you spent with us today.